What inspired you to start your own production company?
I just wanted to kind of have more control over my own destiny and make more decisions beyond just the creative, like control not just what I did, but like how it was done. Because working at a company, you know, sometimes you're at the mercy of other people's rules and things like that.
I like to create and I like to be proactive in doing something. So I really didn't want to be sitting around waiting for auditions, waiting for the phone to ring. You know, I had this past where I'd created, I had experience as a producer in marketing, you know, and I wanted to basically put it all together and create my own stuff. I didn't like working for other people and not being able to, you know, kind of create and share and have these ideas and see them come to life and, you know, be further down the scale. It was a big kind of corporation, you know, like working for a big network, and I just didn't have the chance there to really grow and create as I wanted to.
I mean, when I was a kid, I started my first production company when I was maybe 9 or 10, Boy of Destiny Productions.
Oh, nice.
No, like, it was making movies, making little videos with my friends was my hobby. Like, it's what I did. Like, when other kids were playing soccer or kissing girls, like, I was making little movies with my friends. And as I got older, as I got in high school, I found fellow friends who wanted to make movies, and we formed a production company, even just to make, we made a feature in high school. You know, we made 3 features by the time, like, I went to college over the summers. And from a young age, I knew that I wanted to make movies and work in creative entertainment fields, and like, I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
I wanted to make like a no pressure short film channel originally with horror shorts, and, you know, not be like super worried about big budgets like on feature films. Just like no stress, just I love filmmaking, let's make short horrors. And it was because I made a short film with my husband, and I was like, I would like, and we had his original logo on, I was like, I would like a horror one, I might as well put a horror film company on there, like, even if I don't go any further with it. And then it was from there that I realized that he didn't really want to pursue horror. And he said, but that shouldn't ever stop you just because I don't want to. He's like, I'll teach you everything I know if that's what you want to do. Like, you have to follow your dreams. And I was like, all right, I will. And then I started making more, and I was like, oh, I might as well have a logo. and then you just start building something. And like, I'm a big fan now of just do it, you know? Like, you don't have to worry about the future of something. Just do what you want to do right now, and if it's something, it'll become something.
I wanted to brand myself. I learned from Tyler Perry about branding yourself. He had Tyler Perry Films or studios, whatever, at the time. And I said, me do Antoine Films. And first I went to LegalZoom. LegalZoom is a website that you could basically trademark your company, do everything for your company to get you up and running, LLC, and go through them. It's way cheaper than going through a lawyer.
All you got to do to start a production company is register it with the city, and then you have a company.
Yeah, it's pretty easy, actually. I mean, you just go to the Secretary of State, you get incorporated, and I did that. I had some experience trying to do little side hustles when I had a job anyway. Like, I had a personal training business, or I had a fitness radio show, and different things like that.
Oh, LegalZoom.
Okay.
LegalZoom right there. It's pretty easy. That's what we did for Go Pop Films. Yeah.
Doesn't cost anything. Maybe $125 to incorporate, depending on what state you're in. You know, you get EIN number. If you're in New Jersey, EIN number and those type of, I mean, it costs you less than $200 to start it. To start a production company, you know, I mean, nowadays you have a phone. You could start anything. I started with nothing. I started with a DSLR. With a DSLR with a lens and 85mm lens, and that's all I had, and a weak tripod.
It's not quite as easy to pin one number on it. It takes enough to back up, you know, to hire writers. Really, that's what it took. It took enough to go out there and be able to hire writers, and on ideas that you believe have viability, and that you believe you can get there. And so that's what we did. That's really how the company started?
The core essentials would be your purpose. You got to have a purpose, number one. Like, it cannot be about money. That's number two. Those are rules for me. And it's got to be impactful. It's got to help something. It's got to solve a problem. Those are the three cores. After that, it's like, obviously your integrity, all the standard stuff that makes a good human being, right, are essentials to building to the business. But the people the most important thing is understanding your positioning, your purpose, and knowing that you are solving a problem. Filmmakers, relating it back to filmmakers, films have to solve a problem. You're solving a problem, whether you're doing comedy, you're doing a horror format, or you're doing a dramedy, whatever it is format. You're telling a story that's solving something that's gonna help somebody.
Obviously, if you start out first, if it's just by yourself, for people out there not knowing, you could be a sole proprietor, so you don't have to, you don't have to start an LLC. I eventually moved into GoPop Films as an LLC to gain the protection of that. But with that in mind, there's different fees involved, state fees, different taxes and things like that involved. So being like a producer versus like a director or anyone like that, you have to sort of be on top of all the legal regulations, the taxes and things like that. So when you start like your production company, whether it's a commercial production company, you start charging people fees, producing video content, editing, and then you would charge that. Then that would be your revenue for the year, and you minus all your expenses. And then at first, I was doing all my taxes and things, and then you want to find a good accountant. After a while, it gets a little bit hairy and things like that. And for those who are maybe starting a film or a movie or feature film, we had our film's called All Roads to Perla. Prior to that, it was called Sleeping in Plastic. We started a Sleeping in Plastic LLC. So the film itself is its own entity. Separate from GoPop Films, So each film that you will make will have its own, life.
And what you want to do too, that I'll learn later on, when you do a film, especially feature films, you want to get a bank account just for that film. So if it's, instead of you doing your production company, so if your film is Lola, you want to do a bank account, say Lola. Do an LLC just for that bank account. What that does is that protects you and it protects the film. So all the money is going to the LLC for the movie, not for the production company. So if you get an investor, hey, I want to invest in your movie, write the check to Lola, LLC, and stuff like that. You want to separate the money. But when money start coming in, you start getting big checks, you want to have that. Because when an investor writes you a check, they're not writing to your name. They're going to write to the production company. So when you get to that point, you want to get all that together.
This one guy who had a company, like a full production company with like a staff of like 40 people, he was asking me on the Book of Manning, he's like, well, who did this? And I'm like, that was me. And he's like, well, who did this? I'm like, that was me. He's like, who's your production coordinator? I'm like, me. So, and he was asking like, where did you do your editing at? And I just remember talking to him on the phone. I just looked over and it was like a fold out card table that I had in my gym at home. Like that's where I did all the editing. Like I didn't, so I actually had bought a book, this might be helpful to viewers. I bought a book called Rework, which is about why companies fail a lot in their first 5 years. And a lot of it is just wasted money, wasted resources, like doing things more for vanity, like they think they have to go to an office or they have to have an assistant. And one of the biggest lessons was just spend money on what you have to have. And that's what I did. So I worked out of my home, kept crews really minimal.
The key is keeping your overhead low, which means, don't be straddled with rent, payroll. If I would spend on anything, I didn't spend that much on equipment. I spent more on marketing. I would do that because so that's what we still do, you know.
I don't buy equipment. I have no equipment. So what I do is I hire cinematographers, I hire a crew to do my projects. I have no equipment. I don't buy anything. I just hire the crew. I just hire the DP, production company, key grip. I would hire a whole team and to do my movie.
We started out small, it's just like anyone, like, you know, I'll be sitting out there going, how do people do it? You know, what do you have to do? So I just started it, didn't worry about the equipment. If there was a bigger job to do, we would rent it. I didn't want to buy $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 worth of equipment and have it sit there for a year or two and let it depreciate and not get its value.
You can do a lot remotely. Like you can do, I think people are catching on now, but for a long period of time, it's like things were still being done from like 20 years ago, like how a producer has to sit in the room with the editor. You have to be on location. You have to, you know, especially in post, just things like that. And also too, I've seen treating all productions the same. So a documentary shoot is being treated the same as a commercial shoot. A commercial shoot is like huge. I've done commercials and there's people there who are just like in charge of walkie-talkies. I mean, there's like every little job is like one person. And on a documentary, you want to have a more intimate crew, and especially if you're doing something really like personal and emotional, sometimes you only want like 3 people with the subject, if that. So they're different, but I would see some people applying that same commercial mentality to a documentary. So those are some of the things I've seen money being wasted on.
When I first started, maybe 5, 6 people. I got rid of all of them, and now just me and 2 other people. But really, like I said, me, I'm the captain of the ship.
When I started, it was me and my wife, and now it is me with 4 other folks and a whole bunch of interns, and a roster of really great creatives and directors. So it's become like a little group. And you know, I'm very fortunate of that to find teammates who want to go through the battlefield of being part of a production company.
So I would say if you're going to start your own production company, it's easier now than ever, but you do have to have some infrastructure in place. Like I had a cinematographer that I knew, and also too at the time I did it a lot myself. I edited my own work, I directed it, I produced it, I wrote it.
Starting my own company that started as a goof, and then actually Johnny Voodoo Productions, which I started like as a goof in high school, and now is like my actual LLC production company that I used to make stuff. I just maintained it ever since, and yeah, I guess I've just always kept that going because it's like I have jobs to make money, but then also for fun or as a creative artistic outlet, like there's the stuff I do over here, and luckily we live in an industry, we work in an industry where sometimes we can even make those things overlap.
Definitely when I first moved to LA, I kind of was a little bit frustrated. I mean, everyone says it takes a year to settle, you know, you have to make the relationships, you make relationships with agents and managers and other actors and other producers and people in the industry. But in LA, everyone's doing their own thing, you know, and it was really, that's what I wanted to do with this film initially. I wanted to find someone to produce it, somebody to write it, but no one is going to be as passionate about your own project as you are, which is why ultimately I decided to just produce it myself, write it myself, and basically just take charge of it. And I'm so glad that I did that, you know, because it's now launching me for the future to produce and you know, direct, write other features, other TV content through my own company. And so I'm really quite grateful that nobody wanted to produce my project. You know, it did me a favor. But yeah, it took a while, and it was really when I got to the stage, I'm like, this is just taking too long. If I want to get this done, I need to do it myself.
I was 19 when I started my first production company, the music production company, and it failed. and I started a second one with another partner, and that failed. And so in 2005, I started another one, and I started in a production and technology company, and it almost failed. But what I did was I just kept the name, and I left it for 7 years. Like I just kind of just had the company name, and people do that until I could figure out how to build a business.
My first short film was called Balloons Go Pop. And then so I started Go Pop Films. And that started with the short films that I was doing. And then when we embarked on making the feature film, we partnered up with Red Productions, which is based in Fort Worth, Texas, and Santa Monica. And then recently we started a commercial division of representing different commercial directors for that. So it was a slow process. It was me all the way back then, and then just learning the business of things, and then going, hey, you know, if this person could start a production company, what's stopping me from? Legal paperwork, you know, things like that. So that's exactly the path. And I wanted to have something I could control as a business.
You have to look at this as a business. You know, each one of your films is a new business. Like, and the one thing is like I don't necessarily sell my films. I license them, but I don't sell them, so I still own all the rights to all my projects.
But then it's just like, then you actually have to go do stuff, you know, then you have to make stuff.
Like any company, you need projects. You need to be making stuff. You need to feed the animal.
My production company has done a lot of sports documentaries, but we've done all kinds of documentaries, series, unscripted, reality, corporate videos. Sometimes you do one for the meal, one for the reel. So, and more recently, our first scripted. So pretty much everything under the storytelling gamut we've done.
I had this idea that, wow, okay, I'll have Go Pop Films, and we'll do films. We do short films and hopefully get into feature films. And then I had this other great idea, because I was trying to get into the commercial world of directing and video. And then instead of being in other people's rosters, why don't I create my own commercial vision and put and collect talent that I think that have a great voice and professional and could deliver video content and started that way. So I liked the producing part. After I was produced the first feature film, I was like, whoa, this is a pain in the butt, but you learn so much. Then you almost like don't want to. For me, I like producing. I think it became it was fun, to put things together to help a director help their vision come alive with the constraint of the budget. And that's the key. I was lucky to work with Red Sanders and Derek Brown from Red Productions. When I first met them, they're like, Van, how can we help you make your vision? And I was like, wow. Everyone else, they were very honest about that. And I remember Derek Brown was like, that's part about being a good producer, is helping the director get their vision out there and come alive. And that's what I would like to do with other filmmakers, is help them get their vision alive. So I love that aspect too.
But yeah, we started it about 5.5, 6 years ago, and with a focus on development. We wanted to develop projects from inception, hire writers, give ideas birth, and then take them out to package and look for financing and the traditional producing route. And so that's what Star Thrower started as, and it's still to this day what the company is primarily focused on.
We also have a sales rep that represents Go Pop Films and the directors in the Midwest and Southeast. So what they do is they pitch the ad agencies and art directors on our roster of directors, and they will send if there are treatments or spots or things that we could bid on. So things like that. We also go to direct to brand or direct to companies, that need video content.
Every film that I've been a part of has had a different, everything's slightly different. But I can tell you the most traditional path that we look at and that we try to implement. And that's start with the idea, right? So there's an idea that's either hatched in-house or from a writer that we want to work with, a writer that we know will mesh with our sensibilities. We hire that writer, we collaborate with them. That process can be anywhere from 6 months to a year, sometimes longer than a year, depending on how much work is needed to get the script into the right place. When the script is ready, then we go out to the talent agencies, and we have the actors of our dream, we have the directors of our dream. If I'm not directing it, we look at who are the filmmakers out there that could really do this film justice. Simultaneously, we're looking at the budget, because we have to think about what does this film want to be made for? What should it be made for? What can it be made for? They're all very different things, and so there's a range. And something we look at is if a movie is scalable in that sense, right? Is there a version of this movie that is great at 10 million, but the same script with different people involved, could it be made for 25 million? So we look at that and we think about all of those factors, and then we approach the filmmakers, the talent, the actors, the director. Usually it's director first, and then we bring on actors in conjunction with the director's thoughts, and then we have a package and we go get money, and there's many different sources for how you do that. Sometimes the money comes to you, which is nice, and then you go make the movie. And that's the point where you start hiring all your key positions, and the more and more we make, the more relationships we've, crew that we want to bring from another movie back onto this one, because we've built relationships there. We trust, the trust is there, and oftentimes we work with new collaborators, and that's exciting as well. And then the movie wraps. And then we see it all through post-production, through the editorial and visual effects and sound design and scoring. And then it's about getting the movie out there to the world. If it's an independent without distribution, it's festivals and who are the right buyers and that sort of route. And if it's a studio film like The Post, you go into production knowing your start date, you go in knowing where it's going, when it's going, and how it's going. And so they're two different beasts.
Again, it's relationships. That do people like working with you? Are you easy to deal with? Are you cooperative? It's just striking that balance. Because I've met filmmakers who are very talented, but they don't do well in that client relationship. They don't do well with notes. They don't do well. And it's just being able to strike that balance.
Because we don't want to work with jerks, There's already so many walking around. It's hard. We want to work with good people who are focused on and producing really good work, and also are nice. And we had this motto of work hard and be nice, of that aspect. So the directors not only have to be talented, they just have to be nice people, because when we're on set and when you're dealing with clients, who wants a temperamental director? It's like, we should be fortunate to be working for you. I want to be surrounded with people with that same attitude of like, how can we help you? It's not like, business is, it's like nothing, you can't take anything for granted. Every little job, every big job, it's a job that should be treated the same, highly valuable.
And people are like, I've heard, well, filmmaking or the film industry, there's a lot of nepotism or political people hire their friends. It's like, yeah, of course. Like, of course you hire your friends. You want to hire people you can trust. And so that's true in every aspect of production I've done with who I work with is relationships.
You have to be in the right mindset. It's the first portion of it. Because if you're not going to get the right people to work with you. And if you focus on equipment, then, but then you didn't build it, you didn't build a structure to understand how to tell stories or where it is, then the equipment goes useless. I know tons of equipment collectors. I call them. They got millions of dollars of equipment, they got all this, and they can't even do anything with it because they don't know how to use it. I know tons of those type of people. And so that's not going to create any success. And I know people that know tons of people that don't know how to deploy them because they can't they can't use them for anything. Right? And so it starts with you. It starts with you understanding how to execute and create initiatives and having a purpose to doing that. It has to be that way. There's no other way of doing it.
I assemble my team by people I've worked with previously, cinematographers, audio editors. So I would say it's twofold. Talent is important, obviously, but to me, not as important as being low maintenance. Like I can't stress how important that is. You want people that are going to go with the flow. You know, like I'm looking for Bruce Lee to be on my crew, be like water. You conform to the container because production is constantly changing. It's not like accounting or doing, life insurance. You go out there, especially in documentaries, but in scripted too, what you think's gonna happen that day and what happens are usually, they don't line up all the time. So you wanna be with people that can be flexible, and that you want to spend time with, like in a van, like driving down the highway. So not everybody may agree with this, but I would rather have somebody, let's say, that is A- cinematographer, but I really like and puts me in a good mood to be around, than someone who's an A+ and a huge pain in the ass. Like that's me, because to me, life is short, and I have to spend time with these people, and I want to get along with who I work with. I don't look at it like work and personal. To me, my work is personal because I'm spending my time, and it's time I could be doing anything else. So I would say the people I work with are my friends, genuinely. The one thing that touched me a lot was that my dad said, "Boy, everybody that you work with really likes you. And they really seem like they're your friends." And I was like, great, like that's awesome, because I want to be that way, with the actors, the crew, and all that. So I try to hire people that I get along with.
I like to be an isolationist often, but also like just trying to get on set in any capacity. Even, when I was younger, I was just a PA on set. And you just meet everybody, right? You meet the craft services person, you meet the transpo guys, you meet the hair and makeup people, and you become friendly with them and you get to know them. And then, so much of production is just referrals of, the DP is working on a new project and that project needs a craft services. And he's like, oh, well, I know a person that I met on my last thing. Here, why don't you call them? And so, I love being on set. Like I love directing and being on set, and like it's so much fun. That to me, that's almost like networking, right? Is just being on a set and like meeting everybody. Because some directors will go on a set and just not talk to anybody but their AD or like the actors, But I'm someone who like on the first day I try to introduce myself to everybody. And like I want to know who the transpo guys are. Like I want to know every art department person. Like what is their name? And get to know them all and become Facebook friends with them. And because maybe we'll work together again. Maybe I'll need you or you'll need me. Who knows?
A lot of times we want to look outside our house and the people you need is right in your house. It's like, stop eating out. It's home cooked food in the house. What I basically mean is don't try to search for the big names. Like you have talent right in your backyard. So if you have friends and family, build that team, build your crew up. You don't have to go out and trying to build someone else out. Like everything's in your house. You just got to look for the right people in your backyard.
I live in Los Angeles. No matter where you live, you find the creative people in your city, and you just kind of like get to know them and hang out with them and become friends with them. And it's amazing, you know, even going to a barbecue, like it's a friend's birthday barbecue, and you go and you start talking to people. You're like, so what do you do? And you're like, oh, I'm a composer. Oh, cool. Like, I actually have been looking for a composer. And then you get their card or you get their information. The next time you need a composer, you met that person at a barbecue. And, you know, they often say, like in the movie business, it's who you know, right? But that doesn't just mean like your family connections or something. It's just like who you know, like socially in life, you know, because you went to a barbecue and you met a composer. And then part of like having a production company or making stuff is just knowing people in all fields. It's not just, you know, like as a writer, I sit at home and working on my laptop by myself. But like if you want to actually produce stuff and have a production company, you need to know people in all the fields. You need to know sound people. You need to know composers. You need to know craft services people. Like you have to just get out and like be introduced to people in all fields, so that when it comes times to make something, if you have a production company that makes stuff, you need to be able to call anyone in any position. And if someone's like, hey, do you have a transpo guy, like someone who drives trucks? You're like, yeah, I know three people I could call right now, you know, and that's really helpful.
I certainly knew how to start a company. I certainly knew, and every time I did it, I always had to figure out how to build this business plan. And this long business plan of 30 to 50 pages does not work for me. I'm just not that type of guy. So what I did was I built another way of doing it. And I did it in boxes, like a storyboard. And my business plan was all in storyboards. When you look at it, it's like an org chart. So my strategies are all built like that. And all my tasks are built like boards. So I don't build my storyboards in pages anymore. And so that I learned that, and that helped me tremendously. So I would say, like, you know, to anyone that is trying to start a business or is trying to start that where it is, you got to find your own template that works for you. The template that's standard didn't work for me at all. If anything, it caused more headaches for me.
The balancing of time, I think, is the hardest part, because there's never enough time to do everything you want to do. And I think, you know, there's no world in which you're going to say, all right, these are 2 or 3 projects, and that's all I'm focusing on. I'm going to put all my energy into these 2 or 3 projects and expect those 2 or 3 projects to happen. It's just unrealistic. You know, for us, it's about having more quantity, still quality, but having the ability to go out and try to package several things and get out there, because not everything's going to work, and the marketplace won't deem everything a project of value. So it's about how do we keep ideas coming into the company and having the time to read them, read the books, read the articles, the scripts, meet with the writers, simultaneously prepping a movie, shooting a movie, posting a movie. So, and sometimes, you know, in the case of Ingrid and Crooked, they were overlapping. And so it can be challenging.
The thing I've learned is this whole like industry, I've learned is about leverage. It's kind of interesting. When I was starting and trying to push the script around, and they would go, "Oh, you haven't done a feature film before. It's all you have. This is all about execution. Could you execute this? Can you do that?" And then once I was fortunate enough to work with Red Productions, who've done all these great films before. You know, I was able to work with. That's like playing with someone who is better at you in tennis, so you get better. So these last 3 or 4 years working with all these people was a dream, because I was still absorbing and learning what this industry is about, what's producing about, what's the legal work, how do you get things done. You know, it's like being a director is different. Being a producer, you can't have a sustainable career if you don't make your investors' money back. Being a director, even though the movie might not be a financial success, but it might, you know, garner some accolades, your career could keep going. So the producer's role is really it's brutal. It's strictly business. You gotta make your investors' money back, and that's a different mindset. So I love all the challenges of it. Once you think you have it all sent and done, there's always something else. It's like, I thought we did that. Then the deliverables, then we deliver that, or then wasn't that signed, or what do you mean? It's like you have to be very thorough.
From a strategy standpoint, I would definitely make sure that you are really clear what the outcome is going to be. Like, you want to know what you're trying to get to, and that clarity is so important, because that's how you create your decision makings from the start, and that's how you know how to troubleshoot and figure things out, because that part is so clear. Before, I wasn't so clear about it. Before, I just knew that I wanted to just impact, and that's just a loose term. But if the more you actually narrow down to what that, I wouldn't say it's like an end goal, but almost something that almost feels impossible to achieve, but that's what you want to see before you're dead. That's what you need to figure out right from the beginning of when you make the company, because you have to think about, why do you want to exist? Does the world need another company? Does the world need another filmmaker? Does the world need another production company? Why do you want to compete? If you want to make money, go into a different industry. You know what I'm saying? There's plenty of places that make money. That can't be the goal. So why are you going to production? Because you love it that much? Why do you love that? Why do you love production so much? That part has to be really clear. And it's a surprise to me that so many people are not clear. They just like to do it. Just to like to do it.
It's the path of an entrepreneur, I think. There's an inherent stress that no one sort of talks about all the time, of whether it's your credit cards, whether it's your investors, where it's getting distribution, or I'm going to get in this film festival, I'm going to get that. After all years of all of this, you become comfortable with being uncomfortable. So you start to also become smarter and become a better business person. I always love it when I see signs that says, been in business since 1984, it's like, that's awesome. You know how hard it is to maintain any business? There's a stretch amount of time, whether you're shining shoes or this. It's the same thing with like getting a movie. So I kind of had to tell myself, to take a chill pill and take one day at a time, or I'm going to get an ulcer and a goiter if I keep worrying about are we going to get in this film festival? Are we going to do that? Are we going to do this? It's like, then you sit back, it's like, okay, if you do, then what? If you do, then what? It all comes back down to, why did you start 10 years ago? I love writing. I love doing this. So I always wanted to try to tell myself to not make something I love an albatross, So I have to really remind myself of that every time, So, okay, is this what you want to do? Okay, get better. Don't become cynical, things like that.
I put myself in a place to learn other people's mistakes. And I ask a lot of questions, tons of questions, like a documentary filmmaker would do. And there's nothing like going through it yourself, but going through the mistakes that they go through and being terrified with what they went through is enough for you to pivot your business to a place that could be very successful.
If you get used to your mistakes but don't repeat them, I think that's great, because you could go to all these great schools like producing or business schools and learn a lot of things, but it's something about being in the trenches and go, oh my gosh, that $800 fee, it's, what's the date? October 15th? It has to be in, it's like, did the actors, did we get the agreements done, with did the agents come and talk, and did we get this sign? So the surprise is get everything in writing, sign everything. It's all business. There's a reason that's why it's called the movie business, not the movie. Let's make Van's art. It's you got to enjoy that aspect of it. But if you love storytelling and you know how to kind of play and learn the rules of the movie business, then I think you'll enjoy it.
We were always very driven. We were always very determined to achieve our goals, and our goals were making movies. And so I don't think there was ever a moment where we kind of said, we can't do this. We just looked at everything practically and said, okay, this is the project. We've gotten it creatively there. Now what are the steps that we need to make to get it made? And that kind of goes with every project we do, whether it's something we're producing, something I'm directing. And so I don't think there was ever a moment where I had this perception and it wasn't met.
Again, I don't want to repeat myself, but it is just make sure you're starting with a purpose, that you're solving something that someone else cannot do, or solving something that there's a need for. Don't just start one because you're just starting one. And I would say it's, if you're gonna start one, do it right. Make sure that you're gonna try your best to run a proper business, not a business that's gonna hurt people. Because some people, I think one of the mistakes is that these artists or these filmmakers, they start a production company, but they don't have, I wouldn't say they don't have integrity, but they don't understand the business ethics, paying people on time, all those things, doing contracts properly, nickel and diming, working with trustworthy people, onboarding people, not taking advantage of their employees or contractors. Those are things that are really important. If you're gonna do it, then do it right, because if you do it right and pay your taxes, right? If you do it right, then you'll have a sustainable business, and that people are gonna want. Then you're doing something that a lot of people that don't do it right, and then you're solving that part of the problem too.
COVID taught me that life is too short. No one promised tomorrow. While you working at that job that you hate, I almost died during COVID. I caught COVID, and that's just a wake up call. Like, go after your dreams. I don't want to die old man full of regrets.
It didn't matter to me the path. The result was far more important. I wanted to be making movies. I wanted to be directing movies. I wanted to be producing movies. I wanted to be a part of that process. And to this day, it's the most gratifying thing I could ever dream of. I can't imagine I'll ever fall out of love with this job.